And this rising concern that many Australians have that it's out of control, that it's perhaps undermining our identity, maybe even our security. And this has been a long time brooding. It's taken a long time to become mainstream. See, it was 21 years ago that Pauline Hanson shocked the political establishment, horrified journalists, with this maiden speech to Parliament.
I and most Australians want our immigration policy radically reviewed and that of multiculturalism abolished. I believe we are in danger of being swamped by Asians. Between 1984 and 1995, 40% of all migrants into this country were of Asian origin. They have their own culture and religion, form ghettos and do not assimilate.
Now, the Prime Minister back then was John Howard, who did not support Hanson, supported right to speak but not of views. Now, next to nobody at all back then, at least in the political class, defended Hanson's comments. In fact, she was kicked out of the Liberals. But last night in London, John Howard joined a panel on security and raised what very, very few people in our political class are going to acknowledge. There is a potential security danger when we do have so many people of an ethnicity, and Australia may soon confront that, just as China flexes its muscles here.
Australia's population will reach 25 million soon. 1 million of them are of ethnic Chinese background. Terrific citizens, making an enormous contribution to our nation, but it remains the case that China is very interested in the capacity to use those people to further her power and her interests.
I know that's a provocative statement, maybe even offensive to many. After all, most Chinese Australians are as loyal to Australia as many Australians of British ancestry or Dutch. But there is one fact that most advocates of high immigration and multiculturalism refuse to see or admit. For a lot of migrants, the ties of ethnicity and birth, of blood, are stronger than the ties they have to their new home. If you've been watching the World Cup, you might have seen some examples of this. I mean, trivial ones, yes, but for instance, ethnic Albanian players on the Swiss team celebrated their goals by making the eagle symbol of Albania. And two of the ethnic Turkish members of the German team, they outraged many Germans a couple of weeks ago by posing with the Turkish President Erdogan. And one of the players, Ilkay Gundogan, signed his jersey with great respect for my president. My president, he meant the Turkish one rather than German Chancellor Angela Merkel. And in fact, there are 3 million ethnic Turks in Germany, and Erdogan has urged Turks in Europe to breed more and help him and help Turkey. And when Erdogan was re-elected this week, Turks in Germany, or at least some of them, celebrated like he was their president too.
Germany should recognise that he's not a dictator. We have a great president and everybody should see and hear that.
We've seen exactly the same phenomenon right here. In Victoria, the ethnic Syrian Labor MP Khalil Aida, who the United States last year banned from entry, once signed letters to the Syrian dictator Bashar al-Assad, offering his loyalty, absolute loyalty to your courageous and wise leadership. And he said, "We pledge to continue to be faithful soldiers behind your victorious leadership." Now, Aida, now obviously in the Victorian Parliament, has since said that his first loyalty is actually to Australia. But for me, the question remains, is this Chinese community really so different? I don't think so. When the torch for the Beijing Olympics came to Australia, the Chinese embassy managed to find thousands thousands of Chinese students, Richard Bust, to Canberra to confront pro-Tibetan protesters, sometimes violently. We've also had Chinese interests donate millions of dollars to both Labor and the Liberals, and we've had ethnic Chinese businessmen with links to China lobby here to stop Australia from opposing China's theft of the South China Sea, which means theft of a sea through which most of our shipping happens to come. Now, some of them even got Labor Senator Sam Dastyari to back China's case above our own interests after donating to Dastyari and to his Labor Party. We've also had universities accept Chinese grants. We've seen Chinese students in those universities protest in China's interest. For instance, we've seen them make a Sydney University IT lecturer apologise for using a map that showed territory claimed by China as part of India. In fact, Francis Adamson, head of our Department of Foreign Affairs, was worried enough about this trend to last year warn Chinese students not to stifle our free speech.
The silencing of anyone in our society, from students to lecturers to politicians, is an affront to our values.
Now, sure, she was talking specifically to Chinese students from China. And OK, their loyalty, not surprisingly, would be to China. But what of Chinese students from Australia? Their parents? John Howard is now warning their loyalty is about to be tested too. Tested by a China that seeks to meddle here and which believes that blood does come first. Chinese first, Australian second. Still, John Howard may be worried about nothing at all. But we shall see, won't we?